Will you drink to the earth and to the days which have passed upon it? Will you drink to the fullness which was and to friends who have passed on? Will you drink to good company well met?
But I started thinking about it, just as a, somebody who's raised a middle-class kid. One year, even though you didn't have the job you have now, even though you didn't get a raise that year, the difference between having a job, having a 5% raise or whatever, 3, 5, 7, whatever it happens to be, in the face of inflation, price of the pump, although that's down every day so far. But, it's like, whoa, I feel worse off. But then again, I didn't get a check for $8,000 from the government. They just, among other things. Does that make any sense to anybody, or is it just me?
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
President Biden says democracy is at risk and puts the blame firmly on the followers of former President Trump, whom he vows to stop.
I will not stand by and watch. I will not. The will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost.
The president also laid out what sounded like Democratic midterm talking points, insisting Trump forces want to send the nation in reverse.
Backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
Mr. Biden pointed to the January 6th attacks as evidence that Trump supporters don't respect the rule of law. And the White House also singled out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who last week said this about Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
A new Quinnipiac poll shows some 67% of people believe democracy is in danger of collapse. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy gave a rebuttal to the president before he even spoke.
Joe Biden is right. Democracy is on the ballot in November. And Joe Biden and the radical left in Washington are dismantling Americans' democracy before our very eyes.
And former Trump aide Stephen Miller said tonight it's the president who's dividing the country.
He is truly and irrevocably now committed to splitting this country in two and beginning an era of division and an era of hatred that will wound our soul if it is not repaired for generations to come.
As we said, both President Biden and Speaker McCarthy were in Pennsylvania. That's a major battleground in the midterms where there are races for governor and U.S. Senator on the line.
Joining me now is Mike Davis, president of the Article 3 Project and former clerk to Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Mike, does this mean the request for a special master doesn't really matter anymore?
Not at all. So the Biden Justice Department and the FBI has a pretty bad track record as it relates to President Trump. We've seen that they have weaponized, they have politicized law enforcement repeatedly to get Trump. This was an unprecedented, unnecessary, unlawful home raid on a former president. The whole legal basis for the raid has been blown apart. They went after Trump. They said he may have violated the Espionage Act. That's not even possible. As the commander-in-chief, he can declassify anything he wants. They say he may have stole or misused government property under the Presidential Records Act and other statutes. That's just not possible. There's a 2012 a decision by an Obama judge that former presidents can take personal records with them when they leave office. So there goes the obstruction allegations. It's legally impossible to obstruct non-crimes like they're trying to investigate here. There's a track record of lying in this case. They leaked out that Attorney General Merrick Garland did not personally approve this raid. That's a lie. They leaked out that Trump had nuclear documents at Mar-a-Lago. That's a lie. They leaked out that President Biden in the Biden White House did not have a heads up about this raid. That's a lie. President Biden had to waive President Trump's executive privilege in order to pave the way for this raid. I think Judge Cannon understands that they also, yet Attorney General Merrick Garland said he deliberated for weeks to make this decision. Well, okay, so Trump had these documents for 18 months. The Attorney General had to deliberate for weeks, and they waited 3 days after they got a warrant from this biased magistrate judge, Bruce Reinhart, who just recused in Trump's civil lawsuit 8 weeks ago. Somehow his bias went away. If Trump had such damning records down there, why did they wait so long? Why did they wait to go get these documents?
It's a really good point. But, Mike, here's what a CNN counterterrorism analyst said about the DNI leading a damage assessment on the Trump documents. Watch.
This is a curious one because typically if you're going to do a damage assessment, you know that something bad has already happened. And I don't mean somebody storing documents improperly. I mean, for example, a spy giving away documents to the Russians.
Mike, what do you think about the phrase damage assessment being used here?
They are covering their tracks here because they know that President Trump declassified and took his personal copy of the Crossfire hurricane records, Russian collusion records, and those are damning for the Biden, Obama, Hillary, Clapper, Susan Rice, the FBI, the intel community, and that's what has terrified them, and that's what has precipitated this home raid. And it's unprecedented, it was unnecessary and unlawful, and that's why they did this, and this is a cleanup job.
I think the larger picture is that Latinos have been sending a message for the past 4 years, right? If you take a step back and you just look at 2020, Donald Trump won 7 of the 14 counties along the U.S.-Mexico border, right? And he was able to flip 2 of those. And he made significant inroads in places like the Rio Grande Valley. Fast forward to this summer, someone like Mayra Flores suddenly becomes the first Republican to win Hidalgo County in over 100 years. Fast forward to where we are now, we're not just talking about Mayra Flores. There's 3 Latina Republicans in South Texas that are running for office that are completely transforming the dynamics of politics in Texas, right? And I think the message is that suddenly this hypothetical question of can the Rio Grande Valley, this stronghold for the Democrats, this majority Latino region, can a place like that suddenly become the region that gives Republicans this final push they need through the finish line? That used to be a hypothetical question. It no longer is.
In states like Florida, which Nathan and I were just discussing in the break, and in South Texas, Democrats have not been competing there aggressively or trying to do aggressive outreach to Latino voters, which are different Latinos than live in Arizona, than live in Nevada. And so they focused way more in Arizona and in Nevada. But again, a lot of, Democratic Latino strategists will tell you that the party is often late to the game in terms of how close it gets down to the election. And that was why Nevada was a lot closer than people expected in 2020.
Right. It should be a priority from day one.
Democrats have this major issue when it comes to minority votes. They think that they could win Hispanic and black voters with the most empty, surface-level pandering. It's not going to work anymore. Frankly, I'll even go as far to say that I think it's racist to a certain extent. The implication is that black voters or Latino voters are looking for government support or handouts or are looking for cheap cultural nonsense. From the Democrat perspective, all you need to secure the black vote is to bring Beyonce and Jay-Z on the stage and go on Charlemagne the God's radio show and talk about how you have hot sauce in your purse. It's almost like an SNL skit. Democrats' major issue when it comes to holding on to minority votes is the simple fact that they treat these minority voters as if they're different. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, the color of your skin, your heritage, whatever it is, isn't the major factor behind your voting decisions. Policies are, the economy is. You go along racial lines and humans are humans, regardless of whether they're from. The number one issue right now are gas prices, inflation, cost of housing, people's 401ks evaporating, and Democrats are focused on hot sauce in January 6th. No wonder they're losing so much support, and they're realizing it a little bit too late. The Wall Street Journal just released this article: Latino voters, once solidly Democratic, split along economic lines. Working class Latino voters in particular are moving towards Republicans. See what I mean by they're sounding off the alarm? But it's a little bit too late. You're realizing some really basic stuff here, months, if not years after the fact. Democrats are totally out of touch, walking into the room with their token minority friend, dressed in cultural appropriation clothes, saying, "How do you do, my fellow Latinxes? Oh, I love hot sauce and breakfast tacos. Vote for me. It's not gonna work." And we've been pointing this out for a very long time. This is why the point that CNN makes when they say that Democrats are behind the game is totally accurate. They're so snooty and elitist and out of touch touch, and they're losing the working class. There's a reason why the working class is moving towards the Republican Party, and there's a reason why it's not only happening based on racial lines. White working class, Hispanic, black, whatever it is, you name it, working class people across the board are feeling increasingly disconnected with the liberal elitism, out of touch nonsense. Working class people don't care about January 6th. They have actual important things and important issues that are pertinent to them. They're not working at their fancy desk job, viewing the world of politics like a massive reality show or soap opera, focused on all the drama and whatever the liberal outrage story of the week is. They're trying to feed their kids, and they want to live in safe communities. Democrats are going to them saying, vote for me, I'm a threat to democracy, I'm orange man bad January 6th. And Republicans are just saying, the economy sucks, let's fix it. Freedom, secure border, safe communities.